Every fighter pilot, from the very first gunslinger who flew a wood and wire crate at treetop level to today's manager of a very complicated weapons system, knows that air combat is not just weapon against weapon. It is a matter of skill and judgment, courage and aggressiveness. It is knowing those things about his own machine that might kill him rather than the enemy, a knowing of weaknesses in the enemy's airplane to be exploited, and having a healthy respect for the enemy's capability. There is little way for the layman to experience the air combat environment, but one way to capture something of this violence is to sense visual relationships using motion picture cameras, installing them where the viewer can account for his own airplane, the terrain, the horizon and sky, and the enemy all at once. Flying like you plan to fight is the jargon of simulated combat. One man in an F-8 against two in an F-4, Crusader against Phantom, standard Navy fighters. The imperative, find the other guy first. Having achieved initial firing position because of its better radar, the F-4 gets first advantage. Tally-ho, 9 o'clock, low, 6 miles. To counter the Phantom's advantage, the Crusader must execute a defensive turn. The F-8 pilot meets the Phantom head-on. Now all the action is outside the cockpit. Dogfighting is the order of things now, and both crews are concerned with exactly what Rickenbacker and von Richthofen were concerned with over half a century ago. Position, angle off, airspeed, get the enemy on the defensive. The fighter pilot does not always have the luxury of deciding how and when he will meet the enemy, but once engaged, there is but one alternative. Destroy him before he destroys you. The classic dogfight involving 2 or more jet fighters is a brief, fuel-consuming encounter at best and must reach its conclusion within several minutes. It is the engagement of last resort, the least desirable, most demanding way to fight for man and machine. Never underestimating his opponent, the fighter pilot must judge the maneuvering ability of his adversary during the first seconds of the engagement. From that point on, he must continuously and rapidly predict his opponent's strategy and be able to counter effectively. The Phantom and Crusader are conventional fighters, and in this violent arena of changing speed, altitude, and G-forces, both experience less than optimum wing performance most of the time, only because their respective wings are fixed for best performance in a small band of the tactical envelope. Their different energy levels give each distinct advantages at different altitudes, and this reflects on the skill of the pilot and the performance of the airplane as well. Keeping visual contact and never looking in his cockpit for one moment, he must also assess the effects of sun and clouds and include these in his own battle strategy. All this will occur during extreme and rapid altitude changes from the deck to 35,000 feet, and he will experience equally rapid and debilitating physical forces on his whole system from 0 to 7 Gs. While undergoing these conditions, he must not think about flying his own machine, or where the horizon is, or whether he's right side up or upside down, or whether the machinery is working or not working, whether it's stalling or not stalling. His whole consciousness glued to the enemy's airplane. During an average 120-second fight, he may get 2 or perhaps 3 brief opportunities to destroy his opponent. And in these seconds, he will have to select the most effective weapon at his disposal, fitting range, speed, and angle off to the circumstance of the moment. In his total involvement, he must never forget that enough fuel must be preserved to get back to home base. If the battle has not been joined and fuel reserves dictate disengaging, the fighter could be destroyed in its escape. Running out of fuel is tantamount to a kill for the opponent. Today's air combat training involved 2 airplanes. Tomorrow it could be 4 or 6. The goal is to teach the pilot every fighter tactic in the book, never to consider being on the defensive, to exploit and become one with his own machine, to exploit the weaknesses of the adversary and his machine. All this against a day when an enemy, and whatever fighter he may put in the air, can be met with confidence.